Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ready, Ted, Go, SEC football podcast, talking about everything SEC football. Hope you're doing well tonight. Monday night. So you know what Monday night means? It means we're going to recap our games from the previous week, and it means we're going to pick our games for this week, and we're going to talk about some SEC football. So glad you're joining us tonight. If you haven't already done so, share the video. Share the video tonight. Share the live feed. Tell everybody about at Ready Ted Go as you follow me on Facebook or YouTube at Ready Ted Go or TikTok Ready Ted Go SEC. So yeah, super excited tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about the games from this past week, and we're going to get into rivalry week this week. Big week for rivalry week. It's exciting. Just giving a little chance for everybody to hop on tonight as we get ready. Week of Thanksgiving. I know everybody has Thanksgiving plans. Hope everyone's traveling safely if you're going to be traveling. But special time of the year to give thanks and spend time with family, and then you get all, as I call it, you get all full on turkey and cranberry sauce and dressing and all the other things, and then you sit on the couch and you watch, for myself, football. I finally get the opportunity to throw a few Christmas movies in there. I think every year we get a little bit more closer to the beginning of almost Halloween when we start decorating, but I'm excited. I love this time of the year. But this time of the year also brings a lot going on in all the football world. To see some NFL games around Thanksgiving, a couple college games that are on the slate that we'll look at. Cool thing is we'll get the opportunity to look at some games outside of the SEC tonight as well. But let's hop right in really quick, and let's go back and let's recap some of our games from week 12 last week in the SEC. Not really exciting as far as there's a couple games that were pretty exciting, but some that we can definitely talk about. I will tell you that I got hit in the loss column 2 more times. So I'm up to 16 losses due to a couple of different teams that we'll talk about in a second. But we had, as we kind of go back, we had LSU playing at home against Georgia State. Obviously, LSU, I picked them in there. They took care of Georgia State pretty easily, 56-14. Mississippi State, Southern Miss. Mississippi State at home got the win, 41-20. Texas A&M, first game without Jimbo Fisher, takes care of Abilene Christian, 38-10. So 7-4 for Texas A&M, and they go into LSU this week and could finish 8-4 with no Jimbo Fisher. So we'll talk a little bit about what we're hearing about that on the job front as well, with a couple of different schools now, including Texas A&M. And then Arkansas, Florida International. Florida International did not have enough for Arkansas. Arkansas gets their 4th win of the season to go 4-7. Kentucky, South Carolina at South Carolina. This was one, I think this was actually, if I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong, I might have had 3 losses this week. Did I have 3 losses this week? No. I had 2. I had 2 losses this week. I almost lost my 3rd. I picked Kentucky in this one. I was weary about South Carolina at home night. They got their first, I think it's their first night game of the year, but obviously there was a ton of talk around the guy who created the Sandman thing that they do at South Carolina. Incredible experience at night. I would say that was a really quality win over Kentucky. And next thing you know, you're staring at 5-6 and Clemson next week, and they could be bowl eligible. But we're going to look at all those. It's an exciting week, really exciting week this coming up week, and then we get into championship week. We're going to look at all that coming forward. But Kentucky loses one. Kentucky's really, I kind of predicted this at the beginning of the year. It could get really weird for Kentucky because of the fact that they had some very winnable games at the beginning of the year that got them to those 5 or 6 wins. And then they have had a really, really, really rough run from there. Spencer Rattler, 207 yards passing, 2 TDs. He has not looked like Spencer Rattler all year. A lot of that's because the offensive line play has been very poor. They've had a lot of injuries. They went into the portal and got a lot of good players. I can't recall the names right off the bat, but I do remember a couple of really good junior college transfers through the portal, and a couple of transfers from other schools in the portal. And um, it's a good thing they did, because they wouldn't have had any offensive linemen at this point in the year, because they've had a ton of injuries on the offensive front. And so that's really kept them from doing what they wanted to do. And maybe you could say balance has kept them, because Rattler's basically throwing the ball. I mean, he's not trying to, but he's having to throw the ball a lot to get big positive plays. And I say big positive plays, they're not really getting 20+ yard plays. And I'm saying anything over 10 yards, big positive plays. So South Carolina does pull it out at home. I did lose that one, picking Kentucky. And then we got Louisiana Monroe, Ole Miss. This was close at half, 7-3 Ole Miss. I don't know what that locker room conversation looked like at halftime, but it wasn't a good one. You would think they would come out very, very motivated. Actually, it could have been either way. Very, very motivated coming off of the loss to Georgia the week before. At home, senior day for them, I think they would have been really, really motivated. But they were flat the first 2 quarters, came out, got 21 in the third quarter, which gave them the 35-3 victory. Alabama takes care of Chattanooga 66-10. This was never a game. It was Chattanooga didn't score 7 points till the second quarter, and by that time, Auburn had a lot of points on the board. So then you got Tennessee, Georgia, the big game down in up in Knoxville. Georgia takes care of business 38-10. The joke going around right now was, did Glenn Schumann just let Tennessee score on the first play and get it over with? It's pretty funny. But there's really no backstory to it right now. That Kirby kind of said, he told Glenn, he was like, just let him go ahead and score and get it over with. Kind of a funny joke. But Tennessee didn't have the answers. Didn't really have the answers all night. All afternoon for Georgia. They had their 11 seconds of fame against Georgia, and then Rocky Top only was played one more time. Actually, they played it on the field goal. It was played twice, but it was only played one more time, and that was because Dolly Park was in the building and came in and sang Rocky Top with them. So another Georgia defeat. It drops a 14-game home winning streak for Tennessee and puts them at 7-4, and they're sitting there, with some questions to answer, obviously. And I think that, injuries do play a tale of all, sides throughout the whole season, but every team's going to deal with it. But they have had some injuries. You could tell that they're depending on a lot of people in the receiver position, and, Brew McCoy being out. They just lost another receiver last week that's out. So Squirrel White was, heavily covered. It was take away Squirrel White and make everybody else beat you. And the run game was good. But I don't know, Tennessee's got to get going. They got to get going to be really potent. And it looked like they couldn't stay on the field on third downs, and they couldn't get off the field on third down on defense. So Georgia wins this 38-10 to go 11-0, and Tennessee drops to 7-4. And then, I'm gonna leave this one for last, but the one before that, really, really, really big game in Missouri, Florida, Missouri. Man, crazy, man. The quarterback for Graham Mertz gets knocked out for Florida with a little bit of a shoulder injury. And then they bring in the backup quarterback for Florida, and looks like it's over with, but he battles them back. ETN makes some good runs. They get back within they hit a field goal late to go up 2, I think it was. And then, it got down to 4th and 17 in the middle of the field for Missouri, and they let the receiver run directly to the first down marker, turn around and catch the ball. Then 2 more passes, and then the thicker kicker came out there. And, man, he put it through for a 31-30 Missouri win, and Florida is still not bowl eligible. So, man, talk about a turn of events for Florida. And then, upset of the week, and probably upset of the year, maybe upset of the decade. New Mexico State goes in, and they didn't have a slouchy record coming in there, but 9-3 now, 5-2 in their conference, and beats Auburn at home. Auburn pays them $1.85 million to come in and beat them as a warm-up game to the Iron Bowl. And I'm not going to harp a lot about this one. Man, I think Auburn has done some good things this year. I think they've done some weird things this year. I think that Hugh Freeze Somebody told me today, I think it was today or yesterday I was talking about it. Maybe it was today. And they said, sometimes you just lose it a little bit, and I don't think Hugh's lost it. I was very excited for Hugh Freeze at Auburn at the beginning of the year. I do think they have a lot of work to do to get to the caliber of players that Hugh Freeze needs to run the offensive style that he wants to run. He's never had to deal with culminating, things that, people that don't fit the bill of what he wants to run. And that's what he's having to do this year. I think ideally the quarterback position is a hot topic. I think ideally the defense is a hot topic. I mean, just big plays after big plays. They do a really good job from at the line of scrimmage, but it's just big play after big play, blown assignments. It's just cohesiveness, and it's a first-year coach in the SEC. But the SEC is not going to be any more nicer to them next year when we're adding, when you're adding Texas and you're adding Oklahoma. So they need to bounce back. They have Alabama, but if they play the way they played the last game against New Mexico, man, it's not going to be a really good showing for the Iron Bowl. Not at all. I mean, it hadn't been a good show in the last few years. But you like to get back to seeing Auburn and Alabama back to where they used to be, just like I think you'd like to get back to seeing Georgia and Georgia Tech the way it used to be, and that's coming up this week. But we'll talk about all those. But Auburn pays New Mexico State a bunch of money to come in and win, and so let's just hope Auburn, figures it out and bounces back for that game. So that's week 12. That's week 12, and we're heading into rivalry week. It's a big thing to say right there. And so a lot of big games. I hopped too far ahead. I hopped to the SEC championship. It's the only conference championship that's already been kind of called. So it's the only one there. So a lot of big games as we preview rivalry week this week. You got Ole Miss, you got the Egg Bowl. Thanksgiving night Egg Bowl, 7:30 on ESPN. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. That'll be a good one. I mean, will it be Lane Kiffin's last game at Ole Miss? I don't know. He's told everybody that that he's not going anywhere. I just took my cup right across the screen. He's not going anywhere. All this other, I don't know. We'll see. You got Missouri going to Arkansas. This game would have meant a whole lot if Arkansas wouldn't have blown a couple of games down towards the end of it would have been trying to get Arkansas bowl eligible. Got Kentucky going into Louisville. Louisville's got everything to lose. 10-1, sitting there trying to play for the ACC championship. With a lot on the line with that game. You got Texas A&M going down to LSU and Baton Rouge. This is one right here that could either take LSU to 9-3, or they could finish both teams at 8-4, and you look good and you kind of scratch your head and you go, man, Jimbo Fisher could have been 8-4 and fired. But that's probably, like I said, why they got rid of him in the first place before this game. You got Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl, 3:30 on CBS on Saturday. In Auburn, Jordan-Hare. Man, Auburn takes care of business against New Mexico. There's a lot to be talked about this game. SEC Nation will be at this game. Vanderbilt, Tennessee, in Neyland. And then you got Florida State going to Florida. Florida trying to get bowl eligible. You got Georgia going to Georgia Tech. It's a night game on Saturday night, ABC 7:30. Then you got Clemson going to South Carolina. South Carolina trying to get bowl eligible, and Clemson trying to make a statement to go 8-4. So really, really, really good games. Before we pick the games tonight, though, let's just talk about. We talk about it every week, kind of what we think the committee's gonna look like next week, what they're gonna see, how they're gonna call it, things of that nature. In order to do that, we're gonna step back and kind of look at the games from week 12. Big game this week, obviously, Michigan, Ohio State, and when you look at that game, it could really go. It could go any direction. I mean, I will tell you, Michigan has not played anybody this year. Michigan, I repeat, has not played anybody this year. They played Penn State. My bad. But, when you look at Penn State, there's nothing just very jaw-dropping about Penn State, really. I honestly think Penn State's, your 3 or 4 loss SEC team right now, if you want me to be honest with you, and you can hate me if you want to for that, but they just are. And so, We're not going to really break that game down. It's not my SEC kind of talk scenario, but we're going to pick it later on, and I'll give you my reasons why I think what's going to happen. And so as we look back at what happened this past week, number one team in the nation, per the College Football Playoff Committee, Georgia goes into Neyland, beats at that time the number, I think they were 16 at that time, number 16 ranked Tennessee Vols handedly in Neyland on the road. Your number 2 ranked team in the nation, Ohio State. As soon as this updates, so sorry. Number 2 team, Ohio State in the nation. They play Minnesota. They win 37-3. Really didn't have any problems. Minnesota 5-6. Here we go. We're looking at it already. Strength of schedule. We're looking at wins, losses, who they're playing from week to week, right? So we're not really going backwards yet. We don't have anything to go way back for because we should be up to par with where the committee saw them as a whole right now. Like right now. This is why it's tricky. This is why this is the last year of this stuff. But this is a year where, man, talk about going out with a bang. Like there's a lot of things that could happen this year that we're going to talk about that can really just send this committee thing out with a big bomb. And granted, there'll be a committee picking those teams next year, but there'll be a lot more. I do feel like those that, I said it last week, there's 8 or 9 solid positions out there that could be warranted to go to a playoff, and it'd be an incredible playoff. We may even look at next week what that playoff would look like right now. If we got done with the season, going into conference championships, how it might end if we had 12 teams. Number 3 ranked team in the nation, Michigan, per the playoff committee, wins handily. I say handily. They beat Maryland. It was a game. It was a game all the way to the last quarter. I think Maryland had a shot to win it. 31-24 Michigan. I would say strength of schedule wise, that's bad on Michigan. I don't think it moves them any farther down. But I don't know, man. I can't see this. I think if we either have to be looking at one or two things. Either we have to look at strength of schedule or we have to just look at record. But none of these wins, besides the Penn State game, are like legitimate wins. I'm gonna pull Michigan up really quick. I just want to look at this, man. This is just oh my gosh, man. East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan State, Purdue, Penn State, Maryland, then you get Ohio State. Dude, like you beat Ohio State, you're the Big Ten champion. Well, do you have to play you have to play that game. So you have to go play Iowa. So basically the Big Ten championship is this weekend. So you got to play Iowa. I don't know, man. How in the world can Michigan be in the top? I mean, besides if we're looking at strength of schedule, how are they in the top 4? They're not in my top. They weren't in my top 4. Like they're not. I get it. They're Michigan. They just surpassed the most wins in college football history. First team to do it, so forth, so on. But we're talking about week to week, where it was picked week to week. But if you can't tell me that, I mean, you look at Florida State, 58-13. They have a little bit of trouble with North Alabama. And shame on you, College Football Playoff Committee, if you drop Florida State for that win because they lost their quarterback. Shame on you. It's the body of work now. Tate Rodemaker deserves as much of a chance to prove himself next week into the ACC championship as any other team in the nation does. So shame on you if you drop Florida State because of what you think they may or may not be able to do. Or if you put them at 4 or they end up at 4 because there's not they play Florida and then they're going to play the ACC champion, which we'll look at that in a second too, but to see what that ACC championship is going to look like. But man, shame on you if you drop them because of that. If they were there when you said they were going to be there, like keep them there. A lot of people's polls have them dropping out this week to 5th because Washington beats Oregon State 22-20. Here's my thing. If you're going to drop Florida State out for that, then drop Michigan out. Drop Michigan out too. And I'm dead serious. If Florida State drops out, Michigan should drop out. I personally think that this week's top four, if it was me, strength of schedule wise, and what has happened this past weekend, because here's the thing, you moved Georgia up, you had Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and you had Florida State. Florida State, yes, they got out to a little bit of a slow start. Doesn't matter. It's how you finish. It's the score at the end. The 58-13 over North Alabama. They win how they're supposed to win at the end of the game. That's what the score says. They won. Michigan, Maryland. So is Maryland a better opponent than North Alabama? Absolutely. But I don't think they're a better opponent than Arizona State. I don't know. I've watched Arizona State live. Arizona State, North Alabama, I still think Arizona State, Maryland will be favored. But I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, me personally, if you're gonna hop Washington up, go ahead and hop Oregon up. I mean, go ahead and hop Oregon up to Michigan's playing. But if you're fixing to blow this whole playoff scenario up about what we're going to talk about could happen, then move them both up. Anyways, Florida State beats North Alabama 58-13, very handily. Got off to a slow start. They lost Jordan Travis. I don't know what the exact injury is. I've heard broken ankle, dislocated ankle, broken foot. I think the most thing I've heard that made the most sense was broken ankle. It looked bad. I watched it one time, and for the sake of my man Jordan Travis, I didn't watch it again. Prayers up for the guy. Those injuries, man. There's been so many gruesome injuries that Brew McCoy for Tennessee is the last one I saw this year, and man, these players, especially college football. I mean, I love college football. I mean, NIL has changed the game a little bit, but man, I love watching college football. Those guys, for the most part, there's some individual stuff here or there, but they go out and they give their all for their schools. There's nothing like the college football experience. Nothing like the SEC experience. I'm a little partial, but Jordan Travis goes down. Some struggles there at first, but that Tate Rodemaker kid, man, he came in and did a great job for the team. They went up and stayed up 58-13. They didn't score again. Yeah, there was some duffs here or there and some blunders, but 58-13 at the end of the day. If you could say anything, he was doing something that Jordan Travis wasn't doing, and I'm not saying he's better than Jordan Travis. I'm just saying the kid came in. He hasn't started all year. He came in. He was expected to come in and own the offense, and it's going to take a little bit. He's not the person out there being trusted every single play for the entire 90% of the year. So give the man some time. And then Washington beats Oregon State 22-20. What a close game, man. It came down to DJ Uyunglele, man. He just couldn't finish it. But a lot of people are saying that Uyunglele wasn't the problem at Clemson. I do think there were some moments where I looked at Uyunglele's arm strength and I went, maybe that was a lot of the difference. There was a lot of balls I felt like where he just didn't get there. They just didn't get there. They didn't. If I would call it anything, it just, to my honest opinion, I just didn't think the arm was. All right, we're unmuted now. So sorry. I don't think the arm strength was up to where it needs to be. So I mean, it caused a little bit of problems, but they were in the game. They were in the game. So Uyunglele and Oregon State come really close to beating Penix and the boys 22. They lose 22-20, and then Oregon, settles it handily. So let's look at some scenarios. Just want to open it wide open. So as we look at standings, right? So you pretty much got to think, Adam Fisher, what's up, man? He said, sorry, I'm late. Biggest supporter, man. Thanks for hopping on, man. Thanks for hopping on. So as we hop into just the ACC, so I think ACC wise, we're assuming Florida State takes care of business. They're probably going to take on Louisville. And Louisville's been playing really good football, and it could be anybody's game now. If you tell me Jordan Travis, I would have told you Florida State's still in the driver's seat. I think they were dropped down as far as the coaches and the AP this week. Once again, I will say this: shame on you if you vote them out of that top 4, because what they think now they'll do with Tate Rodemaker instead of Jordan Travis. So you look at the ACC, and what you're going to probably see is I think if Louisville wins that game, then they make it kind of easier for the playoff committee in a little ways. It kind of creates a spot out of there. But some people have Florida State not in it either way. And so, when you look at kind of what that looks like, and then you move to the Big 12, for instance, so you're going to probably see Texas, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State. They get to head-to-head. Does the Big 12 have a chance of championship, right? Who has that question? Who Adam, do you know that? Big 12 still play a championship game? Pretty sure they do, right? If they did, so it's a rematch, or is it Oklahoma State? Oklahoma State win the head-to-head. They do. So they play Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State play. Oh, okay. So no. So Oklahoma State has the tiebreaker. So Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma. So that would be Texas, Oklahoma State, barring any weird movement. So you got to think maybe Texas is sitting there. Yeah, you're right. So you got to think Texas is kind of sitting maybe in a good spot right now, even though Oklahoma State has some good wins. I just don't see them matching up with Texas well. So here's where you get the scenario of Texas and Alabama that we'll talk about in a second. But let's hop to Pac-12. So pretty much Pac-12, you're looking at Washington, Oregon. And I think what you're kind of looking at, depending on what kind of fan you are, right? You're really looking for, I mean, there's some scenarios. Do you look for Oregon to beat Washington and Oregon's in and it totally takes Washington out? Either or, I think, I think Oregon's less of a chance to slip up there. You kind of want Oregon to win that game. If let's just say you're a dog fan and you're like, okay, well, between Alabama and Georgia, what if Alabama beats Georgia? Who out of the Pac-12 to make this scenario not go wonky for Georgia or for any team, even for an FSU? You got to want to say, okay, I really kind of want Oregon to win that game because that would give Washington the one loss. And kind of move them up there, and technically like 2 1-loss teams. You got to think Georgia gets in before those 2 teams. Out of those 2, because they've had a better record, more competition throughout, and then that leaves you with the other thing, which is the SEC, which leaves you with Alabama, who their one loss has been to Texas. So obviously, if you're Georgia, you want to take care of business, right? But if you don't, you lose a close one to an Alabama. You're sitting there with does FSU do they beat Louisville? If they don't, they're out. So you're looking at your 4 teams. Let's look at some scenarios. So let's say Georgia takes care of business. Let's say Ohio State beats Michigan, and let's say that Oregon wins, and let's say that Florida State wins. So obviously, you're looking at Alabama being left out. You're looking at Washington. It's weird, man. It's weird. This is the scenario. This is another scenario that could hurt Florida State. I'm even saying, does it? I don't think it hurts Michigan and Ohio State after they play each other. Before that, it would have. But does it hurt FSU if FSU wins and you have Oregon coming up and beating Washington and you have 2 1-loss teams in the Pac-12? Does Florida State get in? Because you got to think, what would is it? You got to think, does the committee actually say, well, what does the playoffs want to see, right? You got to think this comes to mind, man. They're like, do I want to see Tate Rodemaker at Florida State in his not necessarily his 3rd or 4th playoff game bowl game of the year, but his 3rd or 4th just physical game in his career, taking over for Jordan Travis, who's been the starter all year round. So that comes into play. Do they like the whole Georgia, Ohio State, Washington, Oregon thing? I mean, that right there, man, that's a high-powered it's a high-powered playoff right there. Now let's swing some other scenarios around. Where does Texas get into this? I have a lot of people getting Texas in this by Georgia losing to Alabama. A lot of people think if Georgia loses to Alabama, Georgia's out. I'm not even being Georgia biased on this. How? I mean, Georgia has beaten the 10th ranked Missouri Tigers this year. They're 25th now, but they were as high as 18 at that time. Tennessee Volunteers, they beat at that time Kentucky was ranked 16th in the nation. Kentucky Wildcats. They've beat the number 12 Ole Miss Rebels. I don't know, man. I have no idea how you can't say that. I don't know. Like, let me go to the Pac-12 real quick. Or I'm sorry. Let me go to the Big 12 real quick. Let's look at. You can't just say Texas gets in because Texas beat Alabama. Can you say that? Like, I don't. So Texas has. Here's Texas. Here's their quality games this year. Rice. They beat Alabama. Wyoming. Baylor. Kansas was ranked number 24. Oklahoma they lost to. Houston. So you're telling me that Texas gets in over Georgia because they beat Alabama, which is the SEC champion, but yet Texas lost to Oklahoma. So you're telling me then Alabama is ranked 8th, and they may beat Georgia, and then so Georgia loses to 8 after they've been the number 1 team, number 2 team the entire year. They don't get in, but Texas does because they beat the number, but yet they lost the number 12. And the only ranked team besides Alabama they've beaten the entire year and even played the entire year has been Kansas. And that's it. Houston not ranked. BYU not ranked. Okay, Kansas State, you barely beat them, though. 33-30. You didn't really pass the eye test against a Kansas State team who is not nearly as good as they've been in the past. TCU, you barely beat TCU. TCU is definitely not as good as, I mean, heck, 4-7 Colorado beat TCU. Iowa State, that was a closer game than it. I don't know, man. I'd hate to be this committee, and I'm not being bipartisan, but a one-loss Pac-12 champion. I agree. I have a lot of models that say that Texas gets in. Somebody said today, they said, or maybe I read it on Sunday, they said, so if Alabama beats Georgia, you got the Pac-12 champion, you got the SEC champion, and you got the Big Ten champion in, right? Because Missouri, Michigan, Ohio State's done. So whoever wins, they're in. I take that back. They got to beat Iowa. I think either one of them can beat Iowa. I don't know. Iowa has a great defense, but man, they got to score and they can't. They can't score. It's impossible for them to score. So you got to think they're in. So who's the 4th team? So, I say that Pac-12 might not be in. Because you got a one-loss Pac-12 team, but can you keep a Pac-12 champion out? Like, can you? If it's Washington, you can't keep them out. They're undefeated. But if it's Oregon, there's a one-loss. I don't know, Adam. I don't know, man. I don't know. Is the committee dying to just go? This is finally an opportunity for us to keep 2 SEC teams out, because you would be leaving out. You'd be leaving out Texas, who may win their Big 12 championship with a loss. So it's a champion, right? I'm still looking at what you're saying. One loss usually gets over a one-loss Pac-12 champ. One loss Texas all day. I think the Texas, yes. I don't know, man. A Pac-12 champion with one loss. This is why it's so difficult this year, man. It's so difficult. So I'll give you some scenarios. Obviously, if you're the Big Ten, I think you got to win. I think the things that you probably want to come to play is I think Washington wins the Pac-12, they're in. Ohio State or Michigan win the Big Ten, they're in. Winner of the SEC, they're in. And then the 4th is either an undefeated FSU ACC champion, a one-loss Georgia, or a one-loss. Oh no, it wouldn't be Oregon or one-loss Texas. It's crazy, man. Crazy. Whoever had this 4-team playoff thing, man, it's been wild. For Georgia, it's win. It's win, but it is going to get really, really hairy depending on how the table runs. I think if I did it, if you were Michigan or Ohio State, you kind of know your path. I think you're done. Strength of schedule is going to boot you from anything. I think if you're Texas, you're looking for a Georgia loss. You're looking for an Oregon win. I think if you are Georgia, you're looking to win, obviously. But if you're Georgia and you're like, if there is an Alabama, and I don't know, man. I mean, it's hard to say. I would say right now, you once again might be seeing a version of the national championship. Alabama is really peaking at a good time. It depends on how they play against Auburn. I'll be able to watch that game a little closer this week because I just haven't seen Alabama play anybody in a while. Let's just pull that. I mean, that's a good idea, but I don't know, man. It's very iffy, but we're going to pick the games and call it a night. But a lot of things can go on. So I'm looking at Texas. Like Texas's schedule in the Big 12. Who else, man? I feel like we haven't beat Bama to get any sleep the night before. We're not getting any. Yeah, if we don't beat Alabama, like there's a lot of. You never want to give it to the SEC. I mean, I'm sorry, you never want to give it to the playoff committee to have your to have everything in their hands, because I just don't know how they would do it. I can't imagine Texas's schedule barring them anything great. I'm a little savage about Michigan right now, dude. They should not be ranked where they're at with the schedule that they play. I mean, if the committee had any part about them, they would put them at 5th this week. They have no quality wins besides Penn State. And Penn State, in my opinion, is not a quality win. I repeat, I've seen Penn State play. And I'm just telling you, man, I don't get it. Let's look at Penn State. So Penn State's got 2 losses, right? Lost to Michigan, lost to Ohio State, right? Yes. So they're 11th. Well, let's look at the Penn State. Let's look at this Penn State schedule real quick. Outside of the Big Ten. West Virginia, come on. Delaware, Illinois, Iowa. They beat Iowa 31-0. It's a good win. Then again, Iowa can't score. If Penn State beat Iowa that bad, there you go. Northwestern, come on. UMass, 63-0. Lost to Ohio State. Indiana, come on. Maryland, come on. Lost to Michigan. Rutgers, Michigan State. They got. I don't know. But I'll call it how I think the playoff committee will call it tomorrow night, and I'll call it how I would call it. If I was calling it, I would say Georgia 1. I would have Ohio State 2. I would have Washington 3, and I would have FSU 4. You heard it here first. That's what I would do. Now the committee will not mess up this week's worth of advertisements for 2 playing 3 biggest game of the year. They're not going to stir the pot. They're going to just see this out because they're going to take care of themselves. So they'll play it safe. They're going to call it 1 Georgia, 2 Ohio State, 3 Michigan. And if they're sick, if they're just a sick playoff committee, they're going to put Washington 4, but it's literally only because Jordan Travis is out. I mean, it's only because of that. So I think the playoff committee is going to put, I think they'll put Washington 4. But then again, they're not going to take any chances with 2 and 3, and they know that both of these teams are going to pan out. You put Florida State at 4. Florida State still has to play Florida. Florida State still has to play an ACC championship against probably Louisville. So still 2 games on there with a backup quarterback that are going, this is kind of iffy. So which game? Which game are you talking about? Florida State, Florida? I know Ohio State and I know Ohio State and Michigan are noon. Florida State, Florida is, if I'm not mistaken, Ohio State's a noon game. It's always noon. I think so. Yeah, I think it's always been noon. Big noon kickoff. So it's and game days there. So big noon kickoff, game day there. Everybody will be there. So yeah, I think the committee will do. I don't know. Maybe they'll just let it play out. I know it's going to play out. Maybe they keep Florida State there. I would say they're going to get a lot of kickback if they take Florida State out of there for no reason. I mean, really no reason. But I would say what they should do is keep Florida State there. What they may do is put Washington there. I think 1, 2, and 3 will stay the same. But yeah, so rivalry week. Let's really quick, right? Let's have some fun really quick, and let's pick a couple of these big rivalry games from around all of college football, right? So let's look really quick. So the 3 we're going to pick tonight, really quick before we pick our SEC games that are done for the night. We're going to look at, as soon as my computer acts like that it has some sense, we are going to look at what's coming down the way. Oh, here we go, right here. And some weird dates always around Thanksgiving. So you got the Egg Bowl. You got the Egg Bowl on Thursday night, and then here's your Friday, your Black Friday games right here. TCU, Oklahoma. I'm just going to do these really quick. I think Oklahoma wins that one. Iowa, Nebraska. Beats me. Wouldn't it be really crazy if Nebraska won that game? That's noon on Black Friday. 3:30 game. Tulane wins that one. You got Missouri at Arkansas. That should be Missouri. Texas Tech. I mean, it's a rivalry. Texas Tech is 6-5 this year. It's at Texas. I don't see Texas losing at home. Penn State, Michigan State, not a game. Oregon State, though. I mean, it's in Corvallis. Oregon's about a 2-touchdown favorite. I still think Oregon wins that game. And then, of course, Michigan, Ohio State. I think this is the year. I think this is the year for Ryan Day. I think the only thing they have going for them is they have a little more experience on the side of the ball with Michigan. If Michigan beats Ohio State again, number one, with Harbaugh, freaking like Ohio, the state of Ohio is gonna go into a mutiny, right? They're just gonna go into a freaking all out mutiny. And so I got Ohio State in this one. Right now, Michigan's a 3.5-point favorite. Michigan has a just terrible schedule. Like strength of schedule is it shouldn't even be in the top 100. It's so bad. But without any further ado, let's pick our rivalry SEC games for the week. And let's start out with our 7:30 game on Thanksgiving Day night. You get a game to watch, the Egg Bowl. It's always exciting. It's always unpredictable. It's always a ton of points. Ole Miss is favored 10.5 at Mississippi State. After you saw what happened with Ole Miss and University of Louisiana Monroe, you got to be going, okay, how could this one go? Now, Mississippi State got a lot to play for, right? You got Zach Arnett gone. You can get them bowl eligible in this game. This is a 7:30. This is a Thanksgiving Day night. This game's always a little interesting, probably because it's a hangover from Thanksgiving. I got Ole Miss in this one. Maybe just a sloppy game, depending on weather's been bad for this game in the past as well too. But they're going to Cowbellville. Cowbellville at night will be rocking. They'll have the cowbells going. It's a chance for them to get those extra practices, and maybe once they get a new coach, they'll have Mississippi State's fighting for that 6th game, have bowl eligibility, that extra practices, maybe to get a coach in there and to be able to, it might set the tone for next year and set the pace for next year. But as far as that goes, I got Ole Miss in this one. It's gonna be a sloppy game though. Weather's been a factor in this game in the past few years. Friday, November 24th, Black Friday, 4 o'clock CBS, Missouri, Arkansas 4-7. Not a lot to play for. I think this would help Sam Pittman's resume right here, but man, Brady Cook throwing for over 3,000 yards. Schrader is just on fire. Missouri wins this, goes to 10-2, gets them a New Year's Day bowl. I think it's going to get them in a nice bowl. I don't think Arkansas can deal with this. Even if Missouri came out flat, I just don't see it happening. I will say this: Florida gave. It's just weird. Florida gave Missouri everything they wanted at home, and Arkansas and Florida were neck and neck. It's crazy. Missouri's only a 7.5. I give them more than that. I see Missouri winning this game. I got Missouri in this game. I'm running on 16 losses for the year. I lost 3, 17. 17. So I'm just my old goal was 10. My new goal is 20. So I like to stay below 20 losses for the year. Not bad though. I'm in triple digits in wins. Kentucky, Louisville, noon Saturday game. Big game for Louisville. Not because they won't be going to the ACC championship, but because if they want to keep any kind of playoff hopes alive that are lingering there, they need this game. I do think they win this game. Kentucky needs this win. They really do, man. They just had a really rough go at it, but they haven't been able to win any big games as of late. They just haven't been able to put it together. And if they couldn't beat South Carolina at South Carolina, you're definitely not going to beat rolling red hot, going to play for the ACC championship, Louisville, at 12 o'clock on ABC on Saturday. So Louisville wins this game. Close one. Yeah. I think experts have it right. Around a touchdown will be good. It's always hard to tell sometimes too when you're comparing SEC and ACC, because the ACC, I'm just telling you, man, the ACC ain't a lot of quality football going on right now in the ACC. I'll just put it that way. Texas A&M, LSU, noon kickoff in Baton Rouge. Jimbo-less Texas A&M going to LSU. Brian Kelly, a lot of offense in this game. However, Texas A&M's defense, I like Texas A&M's defense. Jaden Daniels rolling right now. LSU's a 10.5 point favor. Give me LSU because it's at home. I might swing this one different if it's a different kickoff time and it's at Kyle Field with no Jimbo, but no Jimbo. LSU, Baton Rouge at home. Give me LSU. Give me the points. Give me everything. They'll win. Beat Texas A&M. Texas A&M should go to 7-5. That's where we think they'll finish. Be a good finish for them still, with all they're going through. Yeah, man. Jaden Daniels. The guy's legs are like little twigs, dude. They move so fast, dude. He's talented. He's definitely stepped it up a whole lot from his Arizona State years. I remember when he was with Herm Edwards at Arizona State, and you told me he's gonna win the Heisman. I told you, I don't know, man. I put a lot on that in Vegas at that time. I'm gonna skip this game, come back to it. But Vanderbilt, Tennessee, 3:30 SEC Network on Saturday. Tennessee got a lot to prove. They want to go 8-4. They want to go to a decent bowl. They want to have a good end of the year. I think they do it easily. Vanderbilt's got 0 SEC wins. They're going to play their little hearts out to try to get an SEC win. Clark Lea and the boys are probably going to land 0-8 in the SEC. So the finish up 2-10. Yikes, 2-10, man. Tennessee wins this one easily. Then you got Florida State heading to Florida, the Swamp. Here we go. You got 7 o'clock in the Swamp Saturday night. Backup quarterback. Vandy wins. No way, man. Music City Miracle? Tennessee? I picked Vandy the only time I want to pick them, and I probably shouldn't have picked them that week. I'm gonna stick with Vandy. I'm sorry, I'll stick with Tennessee. You're not gonna make me pick Vandy this week. Florida State, man. Florida, no Graham Mertz. Florida State backup quarterback. Whew, is this the upset or is Louisville the upset? It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. Is this upset city? Man, they need this game. They need this game to be bowl eligible. Tell you what, Adam Fisher, I'll go with it again, man. Who you got? I'm feeling upset on this one. This ain't no North Alabama right here, man. Florida's pissed. They should have beat Missouri. All right, give it to me. Give it to me right here. Florida at home in the Swamp. I called Florida and Tennessee earlier in the year in the Swamp night game. This is why. In the Swamp night game, Thanksgiving, backup quarterback, a lot of noise. Florida too much. They ruined the season, probably helped the playoff committee. Yeah, man. I'm telling you, man. Watch out. Watch out. I think Louisville's going to give them a heck of a hard time, too. Alabama, Auburn, Iron Bowl. Is this still the Iron Bowl right now? Auburn 6-5, New Mexico State. They don't have to pay Alabama $1.85 million for this beatdown this weekend, but give me Alabama. Um, Poor Auburn. I don't think we have a kick six this year. I think if anything, maybe some Auburn fans need to pack some money into their Christmas funds and sell this ticket to an Alabama fan. I got Alabama big. Alabama big. It could, but then again, if New Mexico State did it, they do, man. They do. Auburn, I'm gonna be rooting for Auburn. I'll tell you that. I'm rooting for Auburn. I'm rooting for Auburn, man, full fledged. But I think Alabama's gonna win it. Clemson, South Carolina, in South Carolina. Another 7:30 game in South Carolina with Clemson. They get the Sandman. They do their towel routine again, man. Back to back. They had practice this past week where they beat Kentucky. Clemson coming in, not Clemson. Clemson 7-point favorite. Shane Beamer playing for his job, playing for a bowl. Dabo maybe playing for, I don't think he's playing for a job, but some respect. I don't know. If you ain't bought real estate in Clemson, buy real estate in Clemson is what he's saying. It's so funny, man. Clemson taking these games like they're Super Bowls now. Clemson used to be the upper echelon of we tear the ACC up and then we go and blow it. I'm sorry, they won it that one year. We go and blow it in the playoff. Well, we're going to see what everybody says when this thing comes 12 teams. Because you're going to get some teams in there that are always barking, we should be in there. And they get to play their little podunk schedules and get in, a.k.a. Michigan and Ohio State every year. So we're going to get to see what you're made of when you might slip in there as a top seed playing like a 12 or 11 or 10 Missouri, something like that. And we see what you're really made out of when Missouri is the, fourth or fifth best team. I would say they're third. Maybe the third best team in the SEC. But, Tennessee would give them a run for their money too. But I got Clemson in this one. Something tells me that Shane Beamer can't put it together 2 times in a row. The Sandman will be intimidating. The towel routine will be on point, but South Carolina will not. They will not go to a bowl game. And then Georgia Tech, 7:30 ABC. At least we don't have to hear Gary Danielson, right? Did we get all the games? Yeah, we got all the games. Georgia Tech. Georgia's 24-point favorite. I think Georgia wins this game. If anything, I would say they don't overlook Tech. This is a rivalry, man. This is a rivalry. Some things I heard that Kirby said in the press conference was, Georgia Tech's doing a really good job this year in the offensive categories. They have a lot of staff from Georgia that moved over that way. Buster and Kevin from Buster, I forget Buster's last name, but both of them were staffers at Georgia for the past few years. But look for Georgia Tech to be improved. Some people say that Georgia Tech's kind of closing the gap on them. So I will say that Georgia can't come out and take them lightly. I think it would be good if they put them away early and try to get some players on the field and try to get some people, keep them off the field, keep them healthy before the SEC championship. Dog's big, but I hope it doesn't take to the third or fourth quarter to be big. It'd be nice to get them out of there so that we could get some rest and move on mentally to that game plan. So I got dogs in this one. So rivalry week, Thanksgiving week. Thanks for joining everybody. Adam Fisher, still going to get you on, man. Still going to get you on. Talk a little football, maybe SEC championship week, maybe bowl preview. I don't know, man. We'll see. Thanks for joining tonight, though, man. Rivalry week, big week, and then we get into the playoffs with the big game of the week, man. Big noon game, Ohio State, Michigan, and then you're looking at that Florida State game. It's going to be a good one. I got the upset alert. Florida, only because it's the swamp at night. Anyways, thanks for joining. Please share this at Ready Ted Go live. Tell your friends about it. Tell them to join us. Come talk SEC football. I don't like just having. I love having them here. But anybody can type in here. Tell your friends. Get them on here. Tell you what, if you get somebody to join and hop into the chat, then I'm gonna give you a shout out. That's about all you get. So I don't know if that's worth anything to you. That's about it. $10 million of Monopoly money to all of you for Christmas. So Anyways, if I don't see you, I won't see you before Monday. So everyone have an incredible Thanksgiving. It's an incredible time of the year to be thankful for the opportunity to be able to be with family and be around friends and eat turkey and celebrate. And so there's people that don't have their loved ones this year. There's people that don't have the opportunity to see their loved ones, whether they're in military or just not able to get home for the holidays. And so, on behalf of at Ready to Go, to all my listeners and everybody out there, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you have a safe and incredible week with family and friends, and enjoy some SEC football this weekend. And I will see you Monday. Have a great night. Bye bye.